Ntabi Singh? Ntabi Singh, please unmute. Ntabi Singh, please unmute your mic.
I think we lost her because I don't even see her on my screen.
You are muted.
I did unmute just now.
There we go.
Good evening. I am Tabiseng Hadebe. Welcome to Mental Health Indaba. Deep in our indomitable will, we all know that death is an unavoidable encounter. However, we never anticipate that someday we'd be propelled to bury a parent, irrespective of the number of years that they have been allotted on this earth. An imagination of a mother's passing is never one that any child imagines. Now, this evening, we're going to be speaking about regaining strength or regaining the ability to move on from loss. My guest tonight is a very peculiar and driven individual. He is a student at the University of the Free State. He is the CEO and founder of Dr. J. Struthers, luxurious leather luggage. I was listening to his interview this morning on Radio 702. My, it was so phenomenal. Cherish Vundisa, welcome to Mental Health Indaba. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Nthabiseng, for welcoming me, and hello to you and all the Health Indaba viewers. I'm fine, and how are you?
Such a pleasure to have you here. I'm very good, thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you here on our platform.
Thank you for inviting.
Before we start with the whole conversation, can you just briefly tell us where were you born and in what kind of a family setting?
I was born in Bloemfontein, Bilinomi Hospital. I was raised by a single mother. My mom is from the Eastern Cape in Struthers, Ligana village. So she was only girl, amongst her brothers. And then she was close with her aunt, her father's sister. Her name is Nokolo Vundisa Sitoba. Then Nokolo relocated to Bloemfontein, got married in Bloem. And then my mom rather, moved with her aunt, and she stayed there with her. And then that's when I was born. And then years later, we moved back to the Eastern Cape to Pligana village. And I had a happy childhood. I lived in a village with my grandparents and my uncles and aunts and cousins. In a village, we don't buy anything. There's cattle, there's sheep, there's all these trees which are bearing fruits. The branches are heavy with fruits. There's rivers. We go swim the rivers. We go milk cows. We go heading. So everything was just fun. You go play in the fields with butterflies. So it was a colorful childhood growing up. Then at some point, I went to a boarding school in Ruval Primary here in the Free State. I grew up everywhere. Like from Ruval, I went to Cape Town, living with my aunt. But then I was still close with my mom. I was very, very close with my mother. So I was raised by a mother. And at some point in my life, I thought her brothers were my fathers when I was a child. Yes.
That happens a lot. That happens a lot. I've got sons who don't actually understand that my brother is their uncle, that they are nieces. Sometimes they think that my brother is their father. So it happens a lot. So
Sure,
now,
sure.
at some point in your life, your mother fell quite ill. She had a terminal illness. How old were you then?
I was 15. I was in high school at that time. I moved back to Bloemfontein. I was at Bretna High School. I was doing grade 9, grade 10, yes. And it was just a short illness, you know. She was, because I remember we were at ceremony, like in the black culture, if you build a house or purchase a house and you move into this house, you're gonna introduce the house to the ancestors that you are here. They must know that you're here. So we're doing that for one of my uncles back in the Eastern Cape. It was a Saturday. And then she started getting sick um, during the ceremony. And then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, she went to Alo North, it's a town in the Eastern Cape. And then the doctor there referred her to a hospital in Bloemfontein, Rose Park Hospital, on a Wednesday. The following uh, Thursday, she passed away.
And at that time, were you told about her prognosis and did you understand what was happening with her?
That's the thing. I didn't understand. I mean, at 15, the only thing you care about is going on a date with the most popular girl in high school, you know. So I knew that my mom was sick because I would go to hospital, go visit her. But my grandmother, her aunt, the one who raised her, tried to stop me not to go there. You know, she was like, imela no sicelo," meaning that I am being a burden to her. She needs to relax and, you know, get healed. But then somehow I felt like I want to go see her, you know, but I didn't know what was going on. No one told me anything. But I could see that she was sick, you know. You see these things in the movies because she had all these pipes with her, like they were everywhere. And you see these things only in the movies. But I'm just realizing this now, actually, in my adulthood, that back then somehow I knew she was gonna make it at the back of my mind, but then I ignored it, you know. So I wasn't told much, but then I did say that she was really, really sick.
Hmm. And so there were no stages to her condition. She just fell ill for a couple of days and passed on. There was
Yeah.
no stage whereby you could say that the disease had advanced or anything like that.
No, 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 nothing like that. Nothing like that.
Wow. So now,
Yeah.
the day of her departure, were you there to witness this excruciating event?
No, I wasn't. I was told she passed away at 2 a.m. Um, yeah. So I was staying at her house because my mom had bought a house in Blumanda, which was close to her aunt's house. Like 4 minutes, 5 minutes walk. So I was preparing to go to school. And then my uncle, my mom's cousin, came through to pick me up. So I was naughty when I was a kid. My uncle would only pick me up if I've done something wrong, or if I broke a window, or not a window, if I broke a stove, or something, anything, you know. So that time he came to pick me up, and I was like, "Yo, Mizo," you know. I saw the car outside. It's like, "Dodo, Ketlo lad." So they called me Dodo. So like, "Dodo, we had to pick you up."
Okay.
I was like, okay. And I was wondering what did I do? So we had a help. So I was taking me, myself, my little brother, and help. And then she also came with us. She was told to come with us as well. I was just oblivious though. I was like, okay, I wonder what did I do this time, you know? And then we got, and I remember that day I was very excited. We had practicals in our home economics class. So I'm a mean cook, so I loved it. I enjoyed those moments. So we went into the house, my grandmother's house, my mother's aunt, and we sat down. When I got inside, she had brought someone else, her in-laws. Then they said I must sit down. So I sat, you know, those couches where there's like one seater, three seater, and a two seater. So I
Yes,
was
yes.
on this one seater in case I did something. If she slaps me, I must just quickly run. You know, why are you sitting there? Don't sit there. Come and sit here. You know, with us. And then in the middle between my uncle and her in-law. And then that's when she said, you knew your mother was sick, right? In my mind, I'm still thinking, yeah, I knew. And then she's like, your mother left us. Your mother passed away at 2 o'clock this morning. They called me and told me that she left. And I was like, okay. And didn't sink in. I was like, okay, that's it. And I got up and I went outside. I don't know what happened. I don't even know what I was thinking. I just got up and went outside. They followed me and grabbed me, pulled me back inside. And then our help was crying, and so was her in-laws. But I didn't understand why they were crying, because in my mind I thought my mom wanna go see her. That's what happened, And I told them that, hey, I have to go to school. But they were like, no, you can't. I was like, I wanna go to school. And I went to school and I did my practicals. It hit me when I got to school that she's gone. Yeah, that's what happened.
And in that moment, did you cry when you were at school doing your practicals, or you just
No,
continued like normal?
I never cried. I continued like normal. I was like, I knew that she was gone, but somehow you still believe that she's gonna come back, So that's what happened. I mean, I was 15 and she was my everything. She was my pillar. She was my mother, my father, my best friend. So that's how we say it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, I believe that grief is a reflection of a connection that has been lost. Now, the day of the burial arrives, the final dispositioning of the corpse, a harrowing and arduous day that symbolizes the termination of her existence. What were your thoughts and feelings on that day?
At that time, I never even cried during the funeral, because at that time, I just saw people like cousins I haven't seen in a while, aunts, people that I never thought I would see in my house. So my head was always around, like looking, oh, okay, hi, are you here? Are you here? So my brother was standing in front of me. I mean, at that time he was 6, so he was standing between like my knees, and the funeral continued and buried her. My girlfriend at that time was there supporting me at 15. So yeah, that's it. Continued and nothing happened. So what really happened was that I still believe that I'm gonna see her somehow, somewhere, because our house was in Bloom, my mom's house. So I would immediately after the funeral, I wanted to go to Bloemfontein because I thought if I go there, I'm gonna find her there. And then at the same time, when I got there, I was like, damn it, she's not here. And then I'd want to go to the Eastern Cape and stay spread, I'd go to the Eastern Cape again. And then the elders saw something was wrong with me because I'm always up and down. Every weekend I'm here. And then other weekends I'm there and I'm up and down. Or sometimes during the week I'd go to the Eastern Cape and it's school. I mean, I remember it's the time we were writing business economics in high school. I just got up. I mean, it's the middle of an exam. I got up, I left my bag there, and I went out. I think the teacher, the invigilator, thought maybe I'm going to the bathroom or something. But I walked all the way from Bayswater to Blumanda on foot. That's like what, more than 20 Ks, or maybe like more than, yeah. I walked and they realized that I was gone, and then they called it home to find out if I'm home, and no one knew where I was. Then they called the police and no one knew where I was. But I was just walking. I wasn't even aware that I'm walking. I walked all the way from school to home. And when I got home, there were police there waiting for me. And I knew that I was in trouble, but my grandmother just kept quiet. She knew something was wrong. So it took a while. It took a long, long while.
Now, I personally interpret death as an enormity of a profound disruption. Just like you've mentioned a particular incident when you walked out of an exam. Now, most of the time, we know that men are not very expressive people, especially showing their painful or vulnerable side of emotions.
Yeah.
And sometimes this can be because, as a Black society, men are taught that men don't cry. So, did you feel that you not being able or allowing yourself to be openly vulnerable and weep was a sign of weakness? Were you afraid to come out and say, but I cannot take it anymore. This is too heavy.
No. Fortunately, I grew up in a very different family, like open-minded family, if I may put it that way. Men were allowed to cry. I remember, like my grandmother, almost in black cultures, you be told that men are supposed to do these chores and women these chores and whatnot. But I grew up in a house where if you're a man, you're gonna clean the house, you're gonna sweep, you're gonna cook, you're gonna do laundry, you're gonna wash the windows. So we were taught from an early age to express our feelings. So I'm looking at my uncle Charo, who's very passionate, who expresses his feelings when something is wrong or if he feels like he's being emotional. So that's how we were raised. That's how my grandmother raised us, actually. So it was not that case anyway. So with me, it was just different. I think it was a psychological thing. I wasn't aware that I needed to cry. I didn't cry for a long time until my grandmother decided to take me to a psychologist. And then what's so funny about this is that the psychologist was like, I can't do this. I can't deal with this child because I wasn't crying, like nothing. I'll just sit there and just like nod and say yes. Then I'll like when I go home. The only time that I cried, which was like my mother passed away. Um, oh yeah, it was in October the 29th when she passed. So I buried her in November. The only time I cried was when I was doing grade 11. That was like months later when I was taken to a psychiatrist. For the first, I don't even know what she did, but she gave me medication. And then the only thing that she made me do was because she asked me, what do I want to do? What do I want to say to her? I was like, I feel like sending her a text, but I don't know God's number. I wish I had God's number. And she said, what do you want to do then? Like, I want to call her. I want to like send a text and say, why? I mean, my brother is 6 and I still need her. And then she said, I must write a letter because an SMS is expensive. She gave me a piece of paper and I wrote everything I wanted to say to her. And then she said, I must drink water, sit down for a moment. Then she asked me to read it. For the first time in months, I crumbled. I fell down and I cried.
Now, during that acute phase of grief, that can propel different kinds of reactions. Did you feel a certain amount of anger towards your mother for not taking better care of herself?
No, actually, I blamed others. I blamed the hospital. I was like, why did they take better care of her? Why did she die? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? And also at the same time, I blamed myself. I was like, I should have, that day when she got sick, I should have taken her to Bloom immediately. I mean, I'm 15. What am I going to do? But at the same time, I was still blaming myself that I should have.
You thought that you could have seen this coming.
No. I felt like I could have done something better. I could have done something. I could have, I should have, would have, those comments. And I blame myself and I blame the hospital for her death. I was not angry. I just felt, yes, I was angry because I was angry at the doctors and at myself. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So you were caught up. Yes, I can. Okay. So you were caught up in this maze of if only or what if at that point.
They could have, should have, would have. Yeah. I was caught up. Yeah, I blame myself.
Wow.
But I kept continuing, like going to see the psychiatrist until I got better. But it doesn't really get better. It takes time to heal. It doesn't. You don't just go to. There's this thing in where I come from, where you lose when you lose someone, they'll be like, you must feel better now that you buried her, or you buried him, or you buried your brother, or you buried your mother. They believe that once the moment the person is underground, things are better, and it's not. Because the moment during that time, everyone is here, all the cousins, the aunts and everyone, they're here, your friends. But the moment they leave and you are left alone, or you left with the normal people that used to stay in the house, that's when it hits you hard. That's when you feel it the most, you see? So it took me some time. It took me a lot. And it even affected me at school because I wasn't doing well. I didn't do well in most of my grades. And also, there's also things like family feuds that get involved because another uncle will be like, no, I want to take him, I want to raise him. Another one will be like, no, he should stay with me and stuff like that. So it affected me big time. It affected me a lot, actually.
I would believe that grief does that, because now grief is actually an expression of love that continues after death. However, you say that it hit you when everyone else was gone. That's when you began taking stock of the loss. And now I want to understand, when did you get to a point whereby you said, I need to gather the strength to come to terms with the loss and learn to live with the death and to begin to live with the new norm? At what point did you realize or gather the ability to get used to the new circumstance?
You know, when we lose a loved one, especially at that tender age, you don't understand what is happening around you. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, you only understand when you much older that life will relinquish all these burdens onto you. That's life. There's burdens, there's happiness, there's times where you sad and stuff like that. So at that time, I didn't understand what was going on. As I said, it took me a long time to really come in terms with my mother's death. My entire high school existence was just in turmoil, you know, because I didn't know what I was doing, what was happening. I would just wake up and go to school and come back. I had no life. I felt like my life was over. I even remember we had a matric dance, and when we went there and people had their mothers and fathers came over, but fortunately my aunt came all the way from Pretoria, Oostdumy, to accompany me. And still, I was like, I wish it was her, my mom. I love my aunt, but you know, I wish it was her. It took me a long time. I mean, even post matric, I was still having difficulty accepting. Maybe I accepted it, but there was just something missing. I couldn't understand what it was, but something was just not there. There was this huge void, and it took a long time. It took years. It took me like a long time. And another thing now with our families, okay, it was my grandmother, the one from Bloom, who took me to a psychiatrist, but the ones in Spread didn't understand that maybe I needed more help, or this is like some sort of a psychological thing. You know, I need guidance. You know, that people back at home don't understand mental health. What is mental health? You know, when you're sick, when a person is sick, it means get an injection or get a Panado. I don't understand there's another kind of sickness. And again, mental health is a stigma, you know, back in the villages. So my family, I didn't understand what was wrong with me because I was really out of control. I started drinking a lot. I started drinking, and came a time when I received my mother's money. You know, when parents pass away, they leave you an huge amount of money. I blew that. I blew that on alcohol and friends and just going out. I dropped out of school. So I was just drinking. I was just wanting to feel better, trying to find something that's going to make me feel better, but I couldn't find it. I would drink and have friends, but still I'll wake up the following day still not feeling better. Instead, I'll feel guilty. And that's what happened until recently. Now at my age, maybe like 8 years ago, I started like, you know what, you have to change. You have to focus and grow up and move on with your life. I mean, I've grown now. I've experienced a lot of things. So, but it took me a long time.
You mentioned something quite interesting, and that's something that's happening even nowadays with many children. And I believe that the death of a parent can really propel one to explore new terrains. Now, simply because a child is feeling quite rootless at that point. You mentioned that you blew your trust fund and you misused your trust fund.
Mm.
In what particular way, apart from drinking, did you do that?
It was mostly drinking, partying, traveling.
Mm,
I mean, my brother at that time was taken, we were separated. So my aunt took my brother, my mother's half sister. I would fly from Johannesburg to Cape Town just to see him, just to hug him and just, then go back same day. Yeah, then there'll be clubs, girls, friends. I mean, I was 19 at that time. So, no, 20, yeah. So that's what I did. But I did kind of like help out my grandparents once in a while. I send them groceries, go buy groceries and just leave them there for them. And buy my grandmother shoes from Green Cross. Yeah.
wow. So during that time of distraction, who was taking care of the practical obligations, like all the valuables that your mother possessed over the years? Who was taking care of that? Because I would believe, as the eldest son, it should have been your responsibility.
Yeah, well, what happened, Gunja? Oh, the house was rented out, and then we took
Okay.
all the furniture back to the village in the Eastern
Okay.
Cape. It was rented out until it was sold. I'm not sure which year it was sold, but then I was still a kid when the house was sold. So that's what
Okay.
happened. So my mother's aunt, my grandmother, the one who raised her, became the legal guardian. You know, so I mean, Lina, I was also I don't know how to explain this, but I was out of control. I mean, I left her.
Mm,
I had to go to Cape Town. I was like, I'm going to Cape Town to study there. I left. I mean, I could have been here at the UFS. I was like, I'm going to UCT. And when I got there, I mean, I'm going there. I didn't even apply. Get to Cape Town and just stay in Cape Town. I was just out of control.
wow.
So, but she tried. She tried her best to get me into the right track. That I was not willing to listen. I'm like, I remember I was watching the singer Vusinova's story when he was explaining how he also went through the same thing. I was watching his documentary and I was like, this guy is talking about me. This is exactly what I
Mm,
did. And he changed his life and now he's one of the best singers in the country. And it took him a long time as well to change his life.
wow. Now, as people, we have an innate um, motivation to search for meaning in living. And that can be quite difficult when one is overwhelmed with sadness. And it can be quite impossible, more especially if you have lost your loved one.
Mm.
Now, at what point did you gather the courage to reflect, set goals that are aimed at getting you closer to your long term aspirations?
My family. My family, I'm gonna say this. Maybe it might get me in trouble. I don't know, but this is the truth. In families, you find that you're gonna be staying with an uncle, maybe. Um, since your mother is gone, whatever. There's always gonna be that family. This is what happens in most black cultures. Let's say your uncle is taking care of you, but the wife might not be happy with that.
True.
Might not be happy with the kids coming here, or maybe a treatment might be different from the other kids in the house, and you'd feel it. Or maybe they might try to hide it, but some things you feel them. There's this
Absolutely.
thing that children don't forget. So
Mm,
children don't forget any sort of treatment that you ever any sort of treatment a child has ever encountered, a negative in treatment rather, the child will not forget that. So it was family, because I realized that there was a time I went back and I stayed with one of my uncles, and the treatment was not very pleasant, you know. And I realized that if I don't do anything about my life right now, I'll end up in this house and being a Cinderella, male Cinderella, for the rest of my life. That's when I decided to just get up and I hustle. I'm a hustler. I started registering a company and started catering for departments, the municipality. and then it grew to celebrities, to the likes of Nimrod Nkosi and Lin Maula. And yeah, then I was like, this is not enough. I mean, tender things are not like reliable. I mean, you're not going to be called every time. So I was like, I need something stable. I've always had passion for radio and for media. I decided to go for a training that was done in my village by community radio station. I went there, and then one day I was like, you know what? Let me just go to school and finish off. In fact, let me just start again, start afresh, and get a degree and do that. So basically, it was my family that made me to really find the right direction, and yeah, it's family.
Now, what would you say are some of the long-term effects or impacts of early parental death in your adult life?
Come again?
What would you say is the long-term impact of early parental death in your now adult life?
Oh yeah, it was firstly doubt. Doubt had a major impact, negative impact, and feeling sorry for myself, because I always felt sorry for myself, which just made me delay a lot of things, doubt and feeling sorry for myself, and um, and also always expecting someone to do something for me, because my mom always did everything for me, so I always expected others to do things for me. That's the honest truth. That's being honest. I expected a lot from people, and that was long-term impact.
Now, you mentioned an incident that happened while you were staying with your uncle. Now, what do you do when you facing certain sufferings that require you to have some kind of level of support that is not provided by family members? How do you cope with that situation?
That's where the drinking came. That's when I would drink. So drinking was a coping mechanism, and not like drinking and get drunk, like going out, going to the clubs, meeting people and dancing. Of course, they'll be drinking, but it was not
trying to forget.
Exactly, meeting people, go out, yeah, trying to forget and come back in the morning, or maybe like when they're asleep, then they go to work and then they wake up. Just try to avoid them as much as you can. So that's what I did. It was drinking. But then again, my little brother was also one person who made me realize that I have to change for him, because some of the things I did, like when I tried to change my life, were for him. I had to man up for the little one. I mean, right now it's finishing school, yeah, because I kind of like man up. So him as well, also like kind of like, I remember this other day when he was 5. No, he was 7 when he asked, no, 6. When he said, "When are we gonna see mom again?" I was like, we'll never, yeah. I mean, we'll say maybe like the day that we also, take our last breath. And then he asked me, "When will that be?" And I was like, "I don't know." Then he was like, "Okay, then let's die now. I wanna go see her now."
Yeah.
He didn't understand what that meant. So that as well kind of like also made me better for him. Yeah.
Do you feel that he is a burden that you had to carry after your mother's loss?
No, he was
Your
not
brother.
a burden. No, he was not. Not a burden. I had to take care of him, but it never felt like a burden. It was not. Because I'm thinking if he was not around, I don't know what I would be now. He was not a burden. He's one of the reasons like my life turned around.
Wow. Now, do you find that certain family members are reluctant to speak about your mother in your presence because they're afraid that you might not be able to cope with an emotion that is triggered by a reminder?
not anymore. We talk about it now, like, I mean, it's been a long time, but back then they wouldn't mention her name. I mean, I remember they even removed her photos from the walls, and also her clothes were given away, which is tradition in most Black cultures. That was when I was a kid, but now we speak of her all the time. I mean, I have a luxury luggage business, and even one of the bags I named after her. Her name was Nosicelo, so she shortened it, we called it Cleli. So one of the bags is called Cleli, and they were like happy to see that one of the bags is named after her. So we just speak about it all the time. But the pain is still there. It never goes away. That's one thing for sure. I remember like the psychiatrist actually told me that it'll, in my mind, I thought it's gonna go away and just disappear. But it never goes away. It's still there. There'll be times where I would wake up and like, damn it, I wish you were here. But I know that she's not. I mean, even now, when I was telling you about the letter that I had to write, I was emotional. I almost cried and I was telling you that story years later. So it never really goes away.
Now, I must assume that after the passing of your mother, that enabled you to strengthen family connections and find new and deeper meanings to your existing relationships. Do you at some point feel guilty for giving love intensely to your grandmother and aunts without having a sense of guilt and feeling like you are dishonoring your mother for giving the measure of love that should only be preserved for a mother? I mean, earlier on, you mentioned that you had to take your aunt to your matric farewell. Do you feel sometimes that you feel guilty because you're giving so much love to other people that you should be
No,
preserving for your own mother, even though she's
not
not
at all.
here?
Not at all. Because I do love them, but no one can take my mother's place. I remember my grandmother said that at the time when she was telling me, she was like, I will try to raise you, but I can never take your mother's place. So I don't feel guilty at all because no one can take her place. No one can take a mother's love. That mother's love is something else that can never be taken away. So I don't feel guilty at all. I do love them in their own special way, but my mom is something else. The love that I have for her.
After this traumatic ordeal, how did you get the courage to withdraw your energy from the loss and begin to reinvest it into life and to find perspective in loss in such a way that you dreamt again, you began to feel, you began to seeing yourself as achieving certain things without the existence of your mother? How does one get courage from that? Where did you draw your strength from to pick yourself up and say, I'm going to live?
As I said before, with me, it was something. It was a negative impact that had occurred in my life. That being family members, because you stay with relatives, not your mom, and you treated in a certain way. You are fed certain foods that people do not eat, those kind of things. And that's when I was like, I need to get out of here. That's when I fought so hard. I'll just close my eyes and envision myself somewhere out. And the vision, I would make sure that it's a feeling, it's something that I feel as well. And by doing that, it manifested. I vision myself out of that place and in my own space, having my own business and going to school. And years later, it happened. I'm living my vision now, something that I attracted, which is, I believe, is the law of attraction. And I just did that. I believed, and I prayed about it, and I spoke it. I would say it out loud. I would vision it and feel it and say it. And it happened. That's what I did. So if it wasn't for family treatment, I don't think I would have done that. And I'm grateful that I did that actually, because it opened my eyes and it made me stronger because I'm stronger than before. Can you hear me?
I really admire your courage because some children, when they have lost parents, yes, the money is there, they chow the money, and then the trust fund is over, they've got nothing left. And
Yeah.
somehow they think that that's the end of life, there's nothing to live for, because mom and dad, they're not there to support us or to enable us to achieve certain things, or to even applaud our efforts and our accomplishments. Now,
Yeah.
I want to understand what gives you this niche to pursue certain things, to say, I'm going to make it no matter what. Where do you draw strength from?
All right, that's a difficult one. I don't know where I draw strength from, like from. I think it's because of the way I grew up, you know. When I think, I mean, when I think of that, I just tell myself that I do not want to go back there. I do not want to grow up like that, and I do not want my children to grow up in that state, you know. When I have children, I want my children to be to have a better life than I had. So I just wake up and just decide to go and hustle. And let me tell you something, I know how to hustle. So yeah.
That I know for sure.
Yeah.
Are there certain things that you wish you could? Are there certain things that you wish you could have said to your mother before her passing? Do you have
Yes,
any regrets?
I do. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yep. Yes, I do have regrets. I mean, there was once a time when, I mean, my mother was a single parent, and we were not like well off, so there were struggles, you know. And one day I remember asking her, which was mean of me. It was very mean what I said to her. I remember she was in my room. She was packing blankets. You know, almost in the suburbs, you've got those built-in wardrobes, and then at the top they store blankets. So she was
Yes.
busy packing my blankets there because we're going to summer. And then I asked her, because I remember like I wanted some clothes and she couldn't buy me clothes. I mean, that woman would do anything for me. She'll make sure that she'll take me to a good school and didn't buy clothes for herself so I could go to school. Then I wanted these, I remember there were these sneakers. They're called sneakers back then when we were in high school. They were like the it thing. And I wanted one of those, and also Luxian culture, they were the hottest thing at the time. So she couldn't buy me those things at that time. And I asked her, like, Mom, like, was I born by mistake, you know? And she just looked at me and then she started crying. And then she
Mm,
said, I'm doing the best that I can for
mm.
you. I'm doing the best, you know? And I wish I could go back and say, I'm sorry, I know you tried. You tried your best. And she did. And I didn't see that at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. But she knows now.
Hope so.
She knows your heart now, and she knows how you're feeling now.
Yeah.
She knows how you're feeling now.
Yeah, I hope so.
She knows. How would you describe your deceased mother?
Yo, a lot of people say she was a lady. They're like, yo, mama, really lady. I didn't see her that way because to me, I saw a mother, you know. I remember my mom, there'll be like times that when I had this thing called, it was called huduba, to bake bread, to knead flour, to knead a dough and make bread out of it. So we'd wake up in the morning and she had made bread already, smell baked bread, you know, with margarine and coffee, milk in the morning. That's like one of my favorite things. And she knew I loved that. And she knew I loved it. So the kind of person who'd do anything to please her children, you know. And she was family orientated. She made sure that her brother's kids would come and visit in Bloemfontein. And then I'd go and visit them.
Wow.
And she tried to get the family together. You know, she tried by all means that everyone, especially in Christmas, that we go to my grandmother's. Because I know, like with my uncles being married, the wives would want to stay in their house, but she would beg them just to spend time together, just this once, just on this day, and then you can go back to your lives and stuff like that. So she was a family person. She loved family. She loved her kids. Yo, my mom loved us. I mean, mothers love kids. I know that. You know, yeah, my mom loved her kids, she loved her community as well, because I remember she wanted to transfer from the Free State from the Eastern Cape to the Free State because her house was here and work here and teach the side. But then eventually she just like, you know what, let me just stay here in the Eastern Cape. And she started doing activities in our village, started creating events, you know, drama. She started taking kids to tours. She was just coming up with innovative ideas for the village, and assisting others who could not maybe like buy shoes and stuff like that. So those are the things I remember about her. Oh, she had style too, and she got that from my grandmother Mizo. Yes, Mizo, my grandmother. Hey,
Mizo's very stylish. She's
yes,
very
yes,
stylish. She's just
yeah. I
stylish
mean,
old woman.
she's in her 80s and she wears stilettos and goes to wear
The
long
nails
hair.
are always up to date. I mean, her manicure, everything about her.
In her
The
80s.
hair, she's always blonde.
Exactly. So
Yep.
my mom had that from her as well. She was stylish. So that's what I remember about. But so yeah.
And what is the most fundamental and great lesson that you learned from your mother that you still hold dear till this day?
The two things actually. First one was Ubuntu. You know, humanity. I remember this other time I did something wrong. I don't remember what it was. And then she said to me, don't you ever do that again, because if you do that, uzabethakala, meaning that you won't go forward. So you need to be grounded and have ubuntu. I did something, I don't remember what it was, but I know that she said, if you don't have ubuntu, you won't go far. And she said, ubuntu is taught at home, meaning charity begins at home. So almost if you know a home and you are taught and you're grounded, then you know who you are. And if you know who you are, you know where you're going. So she told me of ubuntu. She was saying that always have humility and and love people and respect people regardless of who they are. That's one of the things that she taught me, that respect everyone, doesn't matter who they are. Respect everyone, and she did that as well. Um, one of the things, and what else did she teach me? Yeah, that was that, and also family. I remember when she said, friends come and go, but family, it's bounded by blood. And she also said sometimes family doesn't necessarily have to be blood, but family is one. It's like people that will never leave you, but friends will always leave you. So those are the things that I remember from my mom.
Hmm.
Can't
Now,
believe it.
how do you commemorate her?
Well, my brother and I, what we usually do, but we haven't done that in since since COVID actually, because he's in Pretoria and I'm here in the Free State. So what we do every time on that day that in fact on her birthday, we'd like have something happening, me and him, just celebrate the day that a mother that gave birth to us. And also on the day that she passed, we'll just reflect on things that she did for us, and which talk about memories, our childhood memories. Because like I'm 10 years older than my brother, so that things that happened before he was born that my mom did, and I'll just tell him about those, and I'll also tell me his side of his memories. I mean, he spent more time with mom than I did, so that's how we commemorated my mom. That's how we commemorate her actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, in my introduction, when I introduced you, I mentioned that you are the CEO and founder of Dr. J. Struthers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a story behind your brand, and
Yes.
it involves your grandfather from your father's side, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to ask is, where was your father in this whole circumstance, in the loss of your mother? Where was your father? Did you know him then, or did you discover who your father was later? What was happening?
Okay. As I said, I thought my uncles were my father. I knew who my dad was, but we didn't have a relationship. I remember, like, I have a vivid memory going there when I was a child. I think it was maybe 6 or 5. Yeah, I remember going there, and the second time I saw him was, I think, when I was 10 years. I remember, like, I was from Cape Town to East London, my first time taking an aeroplane. So he bought me a plane ticket from Cape Town to East London to visit him. And then we drove to Namagwe village in the Eastern Cape. I stayed a week with him there. And then I went to my mom's. And thereafter, I don't think I saw him again. I mean, he didn't even come to my mother's funeral. Um, but then I understood why he didn't. He explained. He came after the funeral, visited, and yeah, which was great. Right after my mom passed, that's when I started having a relationship with him. But now the strange thing is that I'm more close with his sisters than him. You know, I don't understand what was going on with men in the olden days. Men in the old days would just have kids, 5, 6 kids, 4, 3 kids. You know, be married and still have kids 4 out. I don't understand, and as so, my dad is like, hey, I have 5 siblings, the ones that I know, and we all have different mothers, and none of us are close with him. So, but we close with each other, and I'm close with his sisters. I call him maybe 4 times a year. One thing that he does though is call me on my birthday. He's the first person to call at 12 midnight on my birthday and say happy birthday. Okay, he remembers. So I got close with my aunt, and this other time I visited him in 2017 or 18 actually, yes. And I stayed with him for 4 months, just the two of us, and I could see what kind of man he was. He's different. He's just a loner. He likes being by himself. He doesn't have, I don't know how to explain this. I'm a sentimental kind of a person. Family orientated. He's not like that at all. And staying there with him, I learned a lot about him and his father, his family, where he came from. That's when he told me about his grandfather, James Struthers, who was from Scotland and came and met Harriet Maolwana in the Eastern Cape. And then they were born, and there I am. I'm born, one of the descendants as well. And while I was staying there, in the villages, we've got huts like rondavels with old stuff. So one of the rondavels had many old things like old queen stoves that used coal, vinyl players, old coats, winter coats, and old bags. And I saw two of these bags that looked very interesting. I was like, if I could clean this up, it's gonna be great. And I took them, and I have one now. I took them and cleaned them up, carried them campus, and then people were like, "Oh my God, what is this?" And everyone was always asking, even the lecturers were always asking. And that's when Dr. J. Struthers was born. But James Struthers, actually, his father was a leather merchant in Scotland. He had a factory. So he came to South Africa carrying two of those bags. So I started something that had already existed, but at a different time, different vision, and of course, under the African sky. And by me. So yeah.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And you're carrying out the legacy of the family, hey?
Apparently, I'm doing so. I mean, I'm telling stories. The first range of the company, I was just telling stories about all the living tribes, like the original tribes from around the world. For instance, we, the Botswanas and the Xhosas and the Zulus, we're not original. The original tribes, we are from these tribes. The tribes like the Samburu people and the Maasai
Mm.
the Inuit,
Mm-hmm.
found in Alaska and in Canada, north of Canada, the ones who wear those like what they call them Eskimos, right? Yes, but they're called the Inuit people, and the Toraja
Yes.
people in Southeast Asia, in Cambodia. So I would just tell, because I love traveling and I love reading. So, and again, you can also travel by reading. You know that, right? By reading a book, you're already there in that country. So I've traveled through
Yeah,
books.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I would just tell stories about those particular tribes through a product. So I would name a product, that tribe, and tell stories about that tribe and giving that particular product character. But
Mm.
now the next range that is coming, I'm telling stories about my family, because the name that I'm all the bags are named after like those people that I love, like there's Unokolo, Miss Olipsula Unokolo, her name is Unokolo. So this is gonna be a story about her, what kind of person she was in his street and to her neighbors, and a story
Wow.
about my mom, how she was and how she loved, story about the others that I've never met, that I've been told, stories I've told. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just sharing stories of the ancestors and the ones that are still alive.
Wow. That's incredible. Cherish, I really admire your formidable courage and deeply humbling strength. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I've learned a lot, and I love how you've grown and evolved from what happened to you. You did not allow that to prevent you from going forth in life, yet you use that as your strength, as your tool to propel certain things that you want to achieve. You are an inspiration to many of us, and I believe to many of our listeners watching and viewing this interview. I believe that our viewers will take a lot from this interview as much as I did. Thank you so much for your time. I know ESCOM has its ways and you improvised. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much. This was an honor. I can't believe I cried in public in the front of the whole world, but thank you so much anyway.
But before I let you go, can you please tell us how do we get a hold of you? How do we get a hold of your products? How do we follow you?
All right. Well, if you want to follow me, my name is Cherish Vundisa Struthers. So Cherish is like Cherish Day. My surname is Vundisa. Then Struthers, Struthers. So the brand is always called Dr. James Struthers. So on Facebook, it's called Dr. James Struthers. You know, you're gonna find it there. On Instagram, it's Dr. James Struthers, Dr. full stop Dr. full stop J full stop Struthers. And then of course the WhatsApp number, which is 081 375 9909. The number 081 375 9909. Just Struthers. Gonna find us there. We are the only brand in
Can you
South
please
Africa.
repeat the WhatsApp number?
081 375 9909.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been absolutely pleasant.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Cherish. Cheers.